Good morning. My name is Caroline Sutton, and as chair of this year's conference, I have the privilege of welcoming you on behalf of the OASPA board and the program committee to the 9th annual conference on open access scholarly publishing, also known as OASPA. We often have our thanks at the end of a conference, but I'd like to do that at the start this year. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule to join us for 2 days of discussion. The attendees are really the heart of this conference, and I'll come back to that point in just a moment, so thank you very much. Also, thank you to all of our speakers, all of our presenters, for as well taking the time not only to join us, but also in all the preparations that I know go into giving a good and thoughtful talk. I'd also like to thank the committee members, so Stuart Taylor, Liz Ferguson, Xenia Van Eddig, Katrina McCullum, for also working with us on the program. And just a couple of practical people that you need to know, but who are really the key to all of this, is Layla Williams. Please stand up, Layla. If there's any questions, things you need about the conference, something's not working, or if you want to tell her something good, that would be good too. She's right there, not just your problems. Also, Claire Redhead, who is our executive director of OASPA. She may be running around elsewhere right now. There she is, at the back, very, very back there, please. Particularly if you're interested in talking to her about membership or other questions that you might have. I also as well want to thank our sponsors, because without the sponsors, we wouldn't have a conference, and your ticket, at the very least, would be much more expensive than it was, so thank them as well. Last night, we had a lovely drinks reception, and I want to thank CCC for sponsoring that, and also to Roy Kaufman, who's in the room, as always, for joining us. There he is back there. Thanks, Roy. How did we go so fast through all of these folks? There. I also wanted to thank Sage Publications for sponsoring our lanyards and Frontiers for our pens. We have ARFA, who's sponsoring our Wi-Fi, and our platinum sponsor, Hindawi, for the delegate bags as well as much else. I just have to go back through to ensure that I haven't forgotten anyone here. Copernicus, as always, has helped us with the registration, which is a huge job, and it goes always smoothly, so thank you very much. And as well to all of our other sponsors who have made this conference possible. Let me just run back to this practical slide here. Wi-Fi access, if you go into and choose Altis Grand Hotel, and then just scroll down until you find Altis Events, here is the passcode, capital letters ARPHA to log in. Okay? We are using the hashtag COASP 2017. Is that correct, Layla? COASP 9, sorry. Okay. So tweet out at us. A couple more practical things before I say a little bit more about the conference and some more deeper thoughts. As you all know, we are downstairs in a basement, so our exit route is there at the back. So should something happen, we just need to proceed quietly, carefully, and calmly out and up to the stairs there. The restrooms also are just up the stairs and then on your left-hand side. Many of you last year who attended the conference said, we want to be able to plug in our machines, we want to be able to plug in our telephones. There wasn't a lot of electrical capability last year. This year we've got lots of cables around. So you can plug in, but the downside of that is we now have a new tripping hazard, so please be careful as you're walking amongst tables. I know we're all adults here, but the mother in me wants to just warn you and tell you to be a bit careful there. And then last practical thing, you will have seen a postcard on your table in front of you, and this is your opportunity to post a question to one of our speakers. So if you turn over the card, you'll see that you can say, who is the question to? We'd like you to write your question, and then give us your Twitter account or email, and our comms team will be tweeting out the questions and then the responses to those. So if we don't get through all of the questions, hopefully we'll be able to capture a bit more of them by including them on Twitter. So moving on from that, let me talk about the conference now. For me, this conference is a bit of an annual energy shot. In part because some of us have been coming so long now that it's a bit of a mini reunion for me. So I get to see some faces that I maybe only see once a year. And I want to mention just sometimes those of us who've been here so much, we often forget to say come on into our group, but we're very happy if you tap us on the shoulder and say, can we jump in here too? So please do that, and we're going to try to be much more cautious about remembering that we want to bring everybody else into the conversation. Because in fact, very often, some of the best conversations I've had are with the new people that are joining that I've never spoken with before. So I look forward to getting to know everyone that I haven't met earlier. And in that spirit, I'd like to do one thing so that we can all feel like we've met someone. I'm going to count to 3, and on 3, please turn to someone that you haven't spoken with before, or maybe you've seen them but you can't remember where, and just say, hi, my name is, and I am from. 2 minutes, 1, 2, 3. Go introduce yourself to someone. Just turn around. Just turn around. That was your 2 minutes. See, there's some really great people around here. I saw a couple people who didn't follow the instructions, though, so go find someone at the coffee break. Hopefully this was a nice introduction, and now you know someone you can go talk to at the coffee break to continue that conversation. The other thing that's really neat about this conference, I think, and why it gives me a bit of an energy shot every year, is this is a conference that takes as its point of departure that the world is in transition, and the sector we work in is in transition, and it has been so for quite some time. But, and this is the really important part, the people who come to this conference are the kind of people who think that is really exciting, that this is a time that is full of opportunity, and the people in this room are the people who want to grab onto those opportunities and say, where are we going with this? Where can we go with this? Yes, there's some challenges. How do we overcome that? And that's what gives me energy and keeps bringing me back to this conference every year, is all of you in this room, because there's a certain kind of energy that it's not about all the problems, but how do we actually move this forward? And I think that is really exciting. The other thing that I think is what I appreciate about this conference is the fact that librarians also feel welcome and want to come to this conference. This is a publishers conference, but it's so much more than that. We've also got lots of groups who are doing things in the open space who also join us. And that gives us a very rich conversation about the things that we have on the program. So as you'll see from the conference program, we're not just talking anymore about open access to articles or monographs, but we're really going beyond that, because open now is something that's so much bigger. We're going to be looking at open peer review around open monographs, open infrastructure. So how can we use open infrastructure and nonetheless create a competitive and rich and good marketplace for the customers we serve? Research evaluation. APCs, how can we create a fair and competitive marketplace? And let me just say, as a OASPA, we don't endorse any specific business model. So we see that there's room for many business models, and we just want to bring out these as opportunities. And I think that richness and the fact that we gather so many different types of groups at the conference has a bit to do with the membership of OASPA. Because although at our core we are a publishers trade association, as many of you will know from looking at the membership list, that we also have an other category. So actually, about 1/4 of our members are not publisher organizations per se, but rather are organizations that leverage OA content or provide services that help facilitate open access. And we have members from the other category as well on our board. And so that gets us thinking in a much broader direction. Of course, this can be challenging because we know that there's varying interests in the room. But nonetheless, I think that pushes us to think in more creative ways. So as we move forward with the conference, I just wanted to point out some of our board members so that if you have questions, you can actually ask them. So I'm going to ask each of these board members to stand up. We have with us Ilko Ferroda from the Directory of Open Access Books and the OAPEN Foundation. Rodri Jackson, who is our treasurer, back there from Oxford University Press. Ilko is, in fact, our secretary as well. I want to mention that. Lars Bjørnshauge from the DOAJ. There's Lars. Xenia van Erik from Copernicus Publications. Yes, and one of our sponsors. Mark Patterson, eLife. There's Mark. Pete Binfield, who with PeerJ, but Pete is not with us this year. Louise Page from PLOS is also with us back at the back. And joining our board, Louise has taken over the PLOS position on the board, so Louise is also joining us new, but also Frank Vasquez, who is just elected onto the board from MDPI. Welcome. And Stephanie Orphan from Portico, also new board member this year. Paul Peters, who's also on stage, and I'll be saying a few words about in a moment, our president. I also want to take the opportunity to introduce you to some that you can still talk about the board, but who are stepping down. Carrie Calder from Springer Nature, who is, there she is in the middle, yes. And Katrina McCullen, who is still very involved with OASPA items, but nonetheless is stepping down from the board. Excuse me. I also want to just say a few words about how OASPA works for those of you who have not been to one of our annual membership meetings. So we will have a general meeting for those of you who are members, and you'll hear more. But just briefly to say, this is a working board. We have one full-time and one part-time staff member. So when you join the board, and these people who stood up, this isn't just to every once in a while join a meeting, but you got to work, and you're on at least one committee, if not 3 or maybe 4. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. 2 committees I do also want to just mention and to give a little bit of attention to. We have, I'm just bringing them up so that I can mention everyone. We actually have a membership committee that some of you love and some of you hate, but in the end you have to deal with us anyway, because we have lots of questions for you about when you send in your applications. That is actually led by Xenia, who I pointed out. We've also got a communications committee, which is headed up by Claire, and I want to thank all of the members from many publishing houses that join that and are helping to with the conference, help check you in today, but who are also helping us in between with all of our communications. We also have a policy committee now, which has been newly formed, and that we've just created the remit for. So that information will be added to our website, and Katrina is heading up that committee to take a look at some key issues that we, as a OASPA, feel that we ought to have a stand on and what those should be as we move forward, but also to keep our finger on the button in case something arises that we ought to be reacting to. We are moving into our 10th year. So this is the 9th annual conference, and 2018 will mark our 10th year in OASPA. So one of the conversations we had at the OASPA board meeting yesterday, and a very important decision that we took, is that we now want to be looking forward to what should the next 10 years be looking like, or at least the next 5, because 10's pretty hard in our business to actually guess what's going to look like, if not 5. Because our original mission was really to just sort of normalize open access publishing, to promote it, to encourage people to engage in it. And in many ways, we've fulfilled that mission. So we really need to now be thinking about where do we now take this organization and what is our role moving forward. Bearing in mind, again, that Open now is moving and expanding to a much wider array of topics, issues, approaches, solutions, etc. And so that's going to be one of our key pieces of work as we move forward as a board this year, of looking at what that strategy is going to be. So I'll be, again, welcoming you, or at least someone will be welcoming you, to our 10th annual conference next year, which will be, we can't announce yet where it's going to be, but stay tuned.